And there we are. And I see David's there. He's still a duck. He's still Sir Duck. And Robert's there. Here we go. What's up? Not much. There's always news. Some news we share, some news we can't. Howdy. Howdy, everybody. My name is still showing up. Yeah, you're still Sir Duck. I don't know what it is. It's better than other alternatives. Hello, the fracas. And there's Larry. All right. So here we are. We pulled into Friday. 83 degrees, around 25% humidity where I sit, which is just about perfect weather. Another 10 degrees cooler. It's better for out hiking because you don't want to work your sweat up too much. Hey, let's get the party started. There we go. Okay. But there we go. So Mr. Larry Aiken's in. Yeah, it's been kind of a crazy day. Got a lot of phone calls today as the announcements are being made for the guest speakers. Of course, in Jason Fritz with the Cracking the Code, the book. I got the book sitting over there. It's on the bookshelf now. So, but and Glenn Rogers, 10 Reasons It's Not in the Superstitions. Hopefully, we'll have Richard Lavelle. I'm a consulting engineer and geologist. He has a degree in everything, so he's smarter than the rest of us. But I've heard him talk, and he knew Tom Collenborn. He did a wonderful talk for the Dons before, hoping he will make it. And then additionally, I'm trying to remember her last name. I can't get her last name, and I feel stupid for it. But her name's Vanessa. She's from Oak Island. And I don't know, Larry can put it up there, but I always forget her last name. Anyway, she is the CEO, or was the CEO, but she owns the Rock, the group that puts the cans in out at Oak Island, so she'll be there. So that's really cool. We got a kind of a neat lineup of people, and that's not just even what we'll do Friday night, and the hike, and the Tonto National Forest, and Woody Wampler, and John Wayne Galloway, and everything earlier Saturday. That's just the evening speakers. So it looks like it's going to be just like a full-blown, really nice program. So we'll see how it goes. Anything can happen between now and then, so we'll see what that'll be. About to get cool enough. Well, and normally this would be about the time of the rendezvous. So it's kind of nice. Yeah, it's Lucia or Lucio or Lucia. Yeah, it's Lucille. We'll have to get the print. See, Larry, that's what you do. Next time you speak with her, ask her to say her name and then practice it. Nothing worse than mispronouncing people's names. Lucio. Is it Lucio or Lucio? Lucio, that's my problem. Is I hate saying people's names wrong. But yeah, so that's really cool because it's kind of a nice kind of balanced thing. Very different things and all. How's the coming and going after dark? Hiking away from camp and coming back in the dark? Well, if you know where the camp is, I guess, I don't know, it gets pretty dark out there, and there's no street lighting or nothing in the mountains, so hope you all have fun at the rendezvous. Sounds like a great time. Yeah, and unfortunately for the people that can't make it, we do not film the rendezvous. We'll take pictures, and there'll be people that, we film little vignettes, things. But we don't film the speakers and stuff. That's just the way we've always been for over 20 years. It's meant just to kind of the rendezvous. It's kind of like Las Vegas. What happens at the rendezvous stays at the rendezvous. But no, the main thing is because the guest speakers we have and a lot of people, it's kind of a different thing. I would say, having spoken at the rendezvous myself, the audience there isn't so much as tougher. It's probably more empathetic, but it's a different audience when you're talking to your peers or people that know their history and this and that. So we'll see how things go for a couple of the newbies, new guys into. They can always say, "Oh, I've been hiked in the Superstitions my whole life," and then they come out and sit around with us and they learn so much. There's a difference between being, and it's always that thing, that separation is there's Dutch hunters. And if you search for the Lost Dutchman mine, if you go in looking for treasure and lost mine stuff, even a stone map guy kind of falls into the Dutch hunter. But then you have your Dutch hunters, and that's the Tom Collenborns, Clay Worse, that's a Ron Feldman. A Dutch hunter is a very, very, when it comes down, because we would always say, oh, okay, you're a Dutch hunter, Yeah, okay, welcome, come on, come into the rendezvous. Everybody's always welcome. But then privately, you'll be sitting there, and someone will talk, and Shoes is notorious for turning and go, he ain't no Dutch hunter, and that's been said about, there was a couple people that when we do the awards lists, like Treasure Hunt of the Year, and it's generally always to a Dutch hunter. We've made sure it's people that are very deserving and deserve the primary award. Special recognition is for people associated with and people that have helped and assisted or done some good, some sort of contribution in some way. Larry Hedrick got one for his contributions concerning the museum. Larry would never, probably not get a vote from those in there of the Dutch Hunters to be in the Dutch Hunters Hall of Fame. He doesn't qualify in any ways. I don't think he's ever spent time in the mountains alone, and his time in the mountains is very limited. His time with Dutch Hunters outside of Tom Collenborn is somewhat limited. He was a big part of the museum, though, so I felt he deserved this special recognition. There are other people that are like that. It's just they think they don't understand the difference, and it's not like a club. There's not dues. It's you earn it, blood, sweat, and tears being in the mountains, and making a trip or two or this or that doesn't earn that. And if you knew that and you sat around the campfire with these gentlemen and listened, you would understand that. Hey, Jack's just opened that door quite violently. So that's kind of what that's about. So when you have people that become very interested and come out to talk, it's good to watch their eyes and how, when they realize how much information there is they'd never even thought of. Jesse Feldman and I once talked about when you get a books by a lot of these people, you got to have your highlighter, and then you highlight everything they completely got wrong. Things that are just documented, simple truths. And you don't want to rip someone, but I always try to talk to people. You need to correct that. If I know ahead of time, and I'll ask people, it's like, why did you say that? Why didn't you put some time in with the archives, with the historical society? Why didn't you read 3 books? Because you obviously didn't, because you got it so wrong, and you didn't proofread it or take it to someone to at least check on some of what you were saying. Because if you say something that's nonsensical and completely wrong, it kind of destroys the whole thing. It also creates misinformation. Speaking of which, I hope everybody's enjoying October and all our videos. And I've had to pull several that we actually filmed because as I researched them, I found out there's a new thing that everybody uses AI to do stuff. I first found out there's a very, very well-known guy, Mr. Ballin. And I'm going to look up to get the numbers here for him. But Mr. Ballin's pretty well-known. He's not Mr. Beast, but he is a well-known YouTuber, content creator. I do believe he was formerly a Navy SEAL. Okay, let's see here on his numbers. He has, let's see, he should have a number here. He has over 2 billion? I think I'm reading this right. Yeah, 2 billion, 2.5 billion views. Yeah. He's doing all right. And then I'm looking at here, trying to see. He's got 1 million or so. But let's see, just his last video. Just to give people... it was only 500,000, but the video before was 1.4 million, 1.4 million. So he does big business. Are you a werewolf? No, I'm not a werewolf. But he did a Lost Dutchman Mine segment. Everything was completely made up. Then I realized he's using AI to develop and tell a story. And then he just reads it. And then I decided to look at it, because I was a big fan. Sorry about that. something in the back of my throat. And then I realized how many of these people do that. I'm losing people here as I'm talking to, not losing them as losing them, but not catching up. All right. Hi, and are you a werewolf? Okay, I wasn't that far behind. I'm not a werewolf, though. I'm not a vampire either. I'm not a cryptid. I'm not an alien. But, so I became really disenchanted with a lot of these things. Hold it. What was that? That's a lot of views. I can only get 3 a week, and one of those is Larry. If I knew, I'd go in. I watch a lot. I will watch anybody's stuff. There was someone that was putting up music, and they were actually doing pretty good. They had some original music they were doing, and I really liked it. And they did, the thing that nailed me was they had a cover of Thin Lizzy's Running Back to You, and I thought it was a great cover. And I liked it, and I always catch their videos and put a like in there and watch the video and get them views, because I think that's important, when people are putting themselves out there and stuff. But what disappointed me was, oh man, it's just made up stuff. And then I started looking at other channels and realizing the 2 of the stories we filmed, and I had to tell Trevor, we're not doing it. And he's like, why? I said, just delete it. And he's like, why? And because it's not real. There's no truth to it whatsoever. I said, I tried everything I could to research to see anything. And I think I talked about on live before about one that there was this woman and she went missing and this whole thing, and I got it all scripted out and I got it kind of in my head and I did it, and then I went and was looking at it more and then found out the woman by that name and all was a different age. She was from Texas and she did disappear, so there was a semblance of truth, but it was more of something completely different. And you become very disappointed because you just realize it's not fake news, it's just fake media. And I hate that. I hate when someone portrays something. There's something particular today I saw, and I was looking at it because it's not just, I just go and I go, oh, there's a new video or something just came up a few days ago. Oh, I'll catch that. And I'm like, that isn't right. That one doesn't go with the other. And this one was Mysteries of Superstitions, puts up this graphic and Larry Hedrick's talking. And it's like Hank Sheffer. It's Charlie LeSueur. And then it's Clay Wurst, Tom Collenborn, and Bob Corbin. I'm sorry, Hank Sheffer and Charlie LeSueur do not belong anywhere in the same universe as those other individuals. And it's like, what are you doing here? I did the thing about people I thought were like the Dutch hunters that had been in the mountains and stuff, and you can talk from your own perspective, but there's not even a perspective there. That's just like saying Frank's one of the all-time great top 5 Dutch hunters. That's just ridiculous. And I hate that because you're putting something in people's mind and putting something in there that isn't right. Yeah, they passed away, but there's other people. Ron Eagle passed away, and he was a hell of a guy. Rick Gwynn, Alan Tree. I mean, we can just keep going down the list of people that have passed away that had so much to say and stuff. But they do it for views and clicks, and it's dishonest in my opinion. And everybody always remember, got that whatever's in my throat. Drink to Bob Ward. Have you ever hiked the Miners Needle area? Yeah, that's what I used to go in that way occasionally. I prefer the cardiac route going into Needle Canyon, but I would go around that way. Randy Wright liked that way. I don't know why. I hate the zigzags going up by Miners Needle. We explored a Miners Needle area a couple times just by default. I climbed up partially in the area and was looking at it for no other reason, just it was one of those days where it's, hey, let's do Miners Needle. Okay, whatever. And we did it. And because I'd walked by it so many times, I just never thought of walking over to it, which is kind of a weird thing, isn't it? You would think you would as you pass by it each time. But it's kind of like how many people go into the mountains to Whiskey Springs or Bluff Springs or Charlie Bluff, but they might go by and look over at Castle Rock. Spanish graveyard, and they've never been there. It's just, oh, well, let's go over there and do that. Perhaps it's Yeah, but you don't need to make stuff. There's enough weird, unusual. I mean, so far we've done 3 stories, and you can go out, and people are out there on the internet. People, once you do these, will contact you, and then I'm very careful on vetting. I want to speak to the person and hear the story out. So I generally say, hey, I'd like to talk to you. And every person, if it's not a personal story that I know of that I've talked to, I like to talk to them on the phone about, okay, tell me the story again. And I want to hear their voice tell it, and for anything there. So that's important to me in working these stories out, because I want to make sure that there's a believability, because there's some of them I'm not sure about, but I want to hear the person and their recollections and so forth and all that. The Angie story I couldn't, and that kind of, while it's our biggest video ever, the dragon people or lizard people and the superstitions, Jerry Hinkle wouldn't even reply to me when I was like, hey, we'd love to, you got a new book out, I'd love to talk to you about it briefly, can we do something, blah blah blah, it'll help push your book. She wanted nothing to do with me, and that kind of disappointed me, and also made me feel, and those kind of people are like that. They're writing a book, they do things, they go to conventions, they want to make money, and that's all it's about. It's a marketing money thing. And to them, it's not like, oh, well, thanks, you told that story, and I'd like to come in and tell you what I can tell you about the background and stuff, and I had met the person, and da-da-da-da. A little something extra. It didn't have to be a lot. She could tell it a little in her own words, but she wanted nothing to do with it. She wouldn't even bother to reply. So that's how those people become. You were talking about books and doing your research. Did you... American Native history and the super... There's not a lot on anything specifically in Native American history and the superstitions. While there was Apache camps and they would camp in there, remember they were nomadic. It's generally stuff you're looking for the Hohokam and the Salados, maybe in the eastern section. I think the Pimas did not have anything permanent in the mountains. Your problem is, and I don't know if the Clovis were ever in there, even preceding all that. The problem is I don't think it's an area... I was very excited when I found the book on earthquakes and stuff, and it didn't really mention something specifically to the superstitions, but it's hard to find someone that writes something like that. I find your best luck in finding something like that is going through the archives at ASU or U of A, where someone, for their doctorate or something, did a paper on something specifically. There is no book that touches on the indigenous groups in the superstitions. Now, the Crematory Rock area, the Dons found that and then had an archaeologist go out there and dig at it, and they were then Odds Halseth, the city archaeologist for the city of Phoenix. He was very involved with the Dons, so I'm sure he was involved in some of the stuff, but I've never been able to find any of the papers on any of those excavations, and they've got to be somewhere, but the problem is, how many of them do they print? And then 40, 50, 60, 70 years later, they're just gone. So it's very, very, very different. You can be a storyteller and just make up crap about stuff because nobody can prove you wrong because there's no book on it or something. So, let's see here. Did any experiment to see what happens if they leave some what? Giants? I don't know what you're saying there. Goats? Leave some goats tied up? Why would I leave goats tied up out there? There's animals out there. I don't know. The cattle seem to run fine. They're not bleeding the cattle out and stuff. I don't know why you would tie up goats. Did anybody ever experiment to see why would you tie a goat up in the mountains? People tie up their dogs and they're out there, nothing happens. Did Jim Bark find any further when he went into Spain? I'd never seen that information. I know they did research on the Peralta family. They didn't find anything that tied directly that was filed on any specific claims, is what I know. So, but there was nothing in depth, and all his papers and stuff, as far as I know, are not in public domain or not anywhere deposited. The Spangler family has all that stuff. T-Rex of the superstition, or a raptor. All the creatures out there. Well, I don't know. I mean, I've had some ideas. I play with the idea occasionally, telling Frank every year, let's go out and pick 5 spots, and let's go and take the gadgets that are for entertainment purposes only, and go to places and do these paranormal videos on spots and do things. And I figure bring chicken blood and do all kinds of stuff to do whatever you can. Now, you might bring in a mountain lion, so it might be problematic. But my bottom line problem is, how many times can you do something where nothing's happening? And when I did the overnight crew, I did something that no one does. Take someone to an area where you cut off the microwaves, radio waves. You can't get cell phone reception. You're not going to pick up anything on a radio. It eliminates so many things. Suddenly, there's no weird noises in the tape recorder for the EVPs. Suddenly, the library is kicking out really stupid answers on the, I think it's the Ovilus. The spirit talker goes by the radio bands. Since there's no radio channel, just goes white noise fuzz all the time. So they found where I took them was nothing but what things did happen. One of the things happened is their chime thing. It was a music box would go off. But there was a couple small snakes in the area, and there was a pack rat running in the rocks. Now, I don't think they ever caught it on film, but I watched it. And then all the activity ceased with the music box and a couple things. Once, I can't remember his name, but he went over there and sat. Well, that's where the pack rat had been, so I'm sure it scurried off, and that was the end of the music box going off, because the pack rat wasn't running around in the rocks around it anymore. It's just, there's a lot of common sense. You play with them, and you're kind, and you're nice, and I'm only doing this live. I would never do a video of it. But it's like, I did it on purpose to see how much of it doesn't work. And they even said, and I think it's in the episode, wow, everything that worked at the brothel in Goldfield isn't working here. There's a reason for that. And that's because I took them in the mountains, and I took them to a place where it requires certain things. All that stuff does. So, yeah, it's... Does Wayne play guitar? That could, yeah, maybe. What was Jacob Walt's hygiene habits like? I have no idea. It was funny, because I just read something not the other day, and people might have caught it on Google, about peasants. And they talked that they were actually well taken care of and actually lived pretty decent lives. They only worked about 20 to 25 hours a week. On the land that they lived on under their lords, and they were quite hygienic. They said they stayed quite clean, used certain pieces of wood to brush their teeth. They said they actually were pretty healthy, and the hygiene was far better than what you see in movies. And they ate a good diet of vegetables and meat, mutton and beef and pork. So it was saying you got to dispel the myth of, how people lived and stuff. So I'm sure it was dusty in Arizona. I mean, you have to be always dusty and dirty. And I don't think, let's face it, guy in his 70s and 80s lives by himself. He's probably not showering every day, right? He didn't have running water, but yeah, I'm sure, but I don't know. There's nothing that says when he came to town. I mean, he came in and sat in Julia's place, and I have a feeling that she'd be like, clean your act up if he stunk that bad, because there was customers. So, but then maybe everybody stunk. Maybe it's one of those things that the BO and everybody stunk. Who knows? Will you guys be hitting Fish Creek, Horse Mesa again? Yes. There's some interesting things in your videos. Yes, we'll be getting back out there. It's been one of those things. In fact, Greg Davis was bugging me the other day, and he was wanting to know how to get up on Horse Mesa, which I told him because I've been there. But, yeah, those are things in plan for this winter. So it's kind of like trying to balance out. We got to get through the rendezvous. And... I used to camp in the mountains back in the 80s. It's peaceful now, too, because there's even less people out in the mountains now. You'll find occasional these vloggers that go out there and camp, but I don't run into many people in the mountains. I think it's fewer and fewer people. There's the main hiking trails if you're going to Garden Valley, maybe Brush Corral and the loop there. Fremont Saddle always will have a bit of traffic. But other than that, it's usually, and you go like the Wave Cave, the Apache Kid Cave. But if you don't do those type of things, yeah, if you're going out by Miner's Needle, if you're going into Needle Canyon, if you're going out to Whiskey Springs, if you're going down into Marsh Valley or Charlie, you're going to run into sometimes nobody. So, and it's nice. It's very peaceful. They put a video about Doc and Bob Ward feud. What Doc and Bob Ward feud? Who did? I don't know. Bob Ward might take a shot at everybody. I don't know. Doc and Bob Ward. Is this Doc Rosencrantz? Because Doc lived on the other side of the mountains from Bob Ward. Doc Nations lived by Bob Ward. Doc Nations had a cabin out there, but Doc Rosencrantz was on the other side of the mountains. I don't know if they would have feuded much. I don't see why Doc would have been there at Bob's. Don't know. That's a kind of a weird one. So, I don't know. But I do play guitar, yes. Hygiene isn't too difficult. Do you think aliens are out there? No, I've never seen anything. I've never seen anything in the sky that didn't belong there. To the Bobs. Ward, Corbin, and all the rest of the Bobs. Garmin. But I think that's that thing, like I said earlier, you have people, even before the internet, people would write books or get into stuff, and Kate Kizar, she wrote that series of books that have really nothing to do with the superstitions, but she put her alien base in there, and geographically the books are all incorrect. Hank Sheffer was the editor on a couple of those books, and it didn't help. But she did articles, and everything I've read by her, I've read a lot of her newsletters and stuff. I have no idea what she was talking about. Horse Mesa and Fish Creek was a big deal. And I don't know. She never does anything drills down specific. It's like dealing with a medium. There's like 8 misses out of 10. But those 2 hits, everybody, it's such a big deal. But I have no idea why people bought into that. And people still do it. They talk about stuff and just, And I talked to Clay once about it. And because he had these really big telescopes, and anybody knew Clay, in his dining room, and they looked out, and he would watch and look at the mountains. And I asked him once, I said, you look through those, and I know you look at the mountains and stuff, and the sky. He liked, like the stars. It was pointed away from the city, so he could really see the night sky. And we were talking, and I said, do you really, do you think there's anything to any of that? Because obviously, you're looking at this stuff. Do you ever see anything that you go, huh? That would make you believe not in it, but why people believe in it? And he had no clue. So, what's the origin of the stone crosses? I think Michael Bilberry made them. Him or his buddy. I'm trying to remember his buddy's name offhand. But anyways, I got interview tapes of them. But I think they made them. I tried to get a hold of Bilberry. I tried to, if they were still out there, if him or someone knew where they were, or if they destroyed them, at least tell us what happened. The doc that lived on Apache Trail was Doc Rosencrantz. Was over the book lust. There was no book Lust for Gold. Was it over the movie? Because there was a movie Lust for Gold. And I don't know why, because that movie was out long before Bob Ward was here. Even he was in Korea after that. And when did Bob get here? Probably 59, 60 after the Korean War. So I don't know. Who knows? We did the video we have of Doc, and when he wasn't doing very well, Tom Cullenborn had filmed it of him interviewing, talking to Doc. So, but again, I've never heard of this feud. I know there was, back and forth a little between Chuck Crawford and Bob Ward, but Chuck would hire Bob to do security and do stuff for him. And I know some of those stories. I don't remember there was many feuds with Bob Ward. I think Bob Ward had a lot of people that didn't care for him, and he sometimes was a little more than aggressive about certain things, but I don't know of any feud. And yeah, Doc, I don't know. He was kind of kept to himself. He was over on the Apache Trail. He had his cabin over there. If you were to camp near Hackberry Springs, would you use the flatlands by the cutoff to the Black Top Mesa? If you're going to camp, would you... Well, Blacktop Mesa's in a whole... What? Blacktop Mesa's like... nowhere near Hackberry Springs. Hackberry Springs is north of Garden Valley. Yeah, the movie. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know nothing about that. Again, it's like... I've never read anything about that. And I've got a lot of Bob Ward stuff. Rick Gwynn was very close with Bebe and Thelma too. And he had a lot of Bob Ward stuff, and I've read a ton of Bob's stuff because Bob wrote about a lot of stuff. And I don't even remember him mentioning Doc Rosencrantz in anything. I have several different manuscripts of Bob's, and then a lot of stuff he just wrote, just kind of journal-y type stuff. But I read a lot of stuff that Rick had that no one really got to see much of, and I don't know where that went. I think it went with Rick's family. I hope it's still somewhere. Bob buried everything, let's face it. But Hackberry Spring is up by Hackberry Creek. It's up First Water. The best way to get to it is up by First Water. There's some real nice camping spots on Hackberry Creek before you get up there. I'd go out in the flats up there, but Blacktop Mesa is completely a different direction. So I don't know how you're turned around there, because Blacktop Mesa's down between Palomino and Needle Canyon. Completely different areas. Dang, I wish I could meet old, I don't know, drink a beer with that guy. We salute him. Yeah, I don't know. People ask me, I think I would have remembered running into him when I was a kid, or at any time, because he was kind of a scarecrow, kind of, body and everything, just skin and bones. He was always very thin. And I think I would have remembered, but, when I was younger, I stayed away from people a lot. So I know I ran into a few people in the mountains. He wasn't one of them. I don't know who any of them were. I can, in my mind, picture them, but I've never seen pictures of them. So, and I didn't think about it then, because Bob Ward's book wasn't out. I didn't know who Bob Ward was. I didn't know who most anybody was. And I always felt, especially when I started going in by myself in the early 80s, into the mid 80s, I just avoid, if I saw someone coming, I was kind of like Ed Buckwitch, just get out of the way and stay off to the side and let them pass and then get back out. It's not for any other reason. You just don't know who you're running into or who they are. So I could have run into people, but I think if I ran into Bob Ward, I would have remembered, because just physically, of any picture you see of him, there's just something about him. And I used to stop at the Lost Dutchman store here and there, and I would think he was, I was down in that area so much. But again, I don't know. I don't remember seeing him around or anything. But I didn't meet Rick Gwynn. I didn't meet a bunch of those guys who were around till later. So I did a good job of avoiding everybody, which was probably good for self-preservation. But I got mixed up, well, obviously, with some other people that were a little wacky going out there digging and stuff. So... But, yeah, I never ran into him. Do you think it is dangerous from a paranormal to camp up there? No, there's nothing out there. There's nothing out there that's going to bother you. I've never had a problem. There's things that happen that are strange, but if you sit back, your biggest fear, your worst fear that you should be worried about is your own fear. I think even in the stories where I thought things were really askewed and there was weird things happened, all but one story do I have possible answers to. I will tell you, we went up. We were up at Bluff Springs. And we went up to this cave in this niche, and it was storming out. And I told Randy Wright, I said, "Man, storm's coming in. This is like Bob Ward's story, where he's up here. There's a thunderstorm rolling in. We should stay here till dark. We should, like, and and Randy just was like, no, and he said, we're gonna leave because I said, no, we can see like the bushes and stuff, and see when it's getting dark. We can hide. We know our way out of here. We'll just see what it looks like with the wind and the rain and lightning of this, what they could have seen. Now, they were drunk, but we can stay sober and say, okay, we sat here, and Randy was like, no. I also suggested to Randy, and this was not for ghost hunting or anything, I said, let's go out and do a midnight hike through Garden Valley and those places at night, and go out there. We'll set up camp, and then that at least the next day we have a nice foot in the door. So let's go out Friday night, set up camp. Then in the morning when we get up, we're already a mile or so, a couple miles in, and then we'll decide which way we want to go. I figured we were going to go down to Boulder Canyon, and he was like, no, I'm not going to stay out there at midnight, because I always told him, let's go out on a no moon night or a full moon night and walk through Garden Valley and whistle. Randy was, no, not going to happen. So there's nothing, the mountain lions, rattlesnakes, that's what you got to worry about. Posted a video with Tom Collenborn and Bob Ward. Yeah, when they were driving on the Apache Trail. Yeah, that was one we got tape on. We converted digitally. And we've always shared those things because it was basically just to make sure they're preserved out there, that people get to see them. Because there's so little of it. I'm sure Tom had a lot more stuff. And it would be nice to see what there is and, be able to convert it all and all. And Tom, this whole channel, this all started because of Trevor and Tom talking. It's how Sunset started. When Frank and I goofed around and shot some videos and did some stuff and thought about doing this and putting something on YouTube, Tom was super complimentary of Trevor, everything he did, the editing and stuff. And he said he has a future in this. You keep him on it. He's really good at this. So when Trevor listened to Tom and Trevor would talk about it. And so that was a big deal. So when we started this, Tom would always talk about, what he liked. And he would, there was times when we talked to him on the phone when me and Frank were out doing videos. And he would suggest other places to go and stuff he thought would be good ideas. So that was the whole kind of reason to keep going at first, but I never thought we would be doing it 5-6 years later. I thought, and then of course there was jealousy, and a couple other people, Charlie Lassou and all, decided to do the real story of the Superstition. They were just, we were doing it for fun, and Tom kind of liked it, and we thought, well, if Tom's going to tell us to go places and do stuff, that'll be cool. So it was more of a hands-on approach and stuff like that. Once people start disappearing, Tom's not going to write Collenborn Chronicles. Then Trevor said during COVID, there's no one talking about all those old stories. The only source people have is they're just basically reading from Tom's book or Tom's articles. There's no one telling their stories of the mountains because they don't have any. And there's no one telling other stories of the mountains because they don't really research or study the mountains. So that was the reason we started doing it more and more. So that was the whole purpose of it. It was never for any notoriety or anything. It was purely just to do it. So I was always happy with what we did. That's why you never saw sponsorship or us doing other stuff. The Rendezvous was similar. It was just to get Dutch hunters, historians, authors, people out to share, and people of like mind, but of different like minds together. And the whole purpose was that whole thing that Tom and Clay and all those guys, the principles they built on. So it wasn't about any other BS. Now, it has its own side and what it is. And then you have the more corporate side. And the corporate side is kind of fiction. And it's unfortunately, but we made an effort to always preserve things. And I could tell, people a lot of stories, maybe around campfires. Sometimes I can tell stories of how other people ended up working or would have worked with us. We weren't really interested, but we did things primarily to help them out because of certain situations. So, we wanted to make sure one individual wanted like stuff transferred digitally so he could share it with his family to preserve it for his family specifically so they didn't have to search on the internet or if it ever got taken down. Trevor made sure he did those things for that person. We did things no cost, just did things for people. It was just about the community and then reaching out to people. And that's what it's always been. But we've been honest about it, and I'll be critical of things and I'll tell you the truth. And I'll sometimes hide things a little for the benefit of certain people to make sure they don't look bad. That may be changing a little. Because how many times does someone just stick knives in your back and after you've seen it do it to other people? And the worst thing to me is I will bite my tongue, and then you start doing it and I start catching it with other people, and then it starts really annoying me. So we'll see what happens. I don't want to create a war feud, because I would win that war feud just simply because, well, no, you can't take them in the mountains because they don't go in the mountains. There you go. I think that would be awesome to stay in those mountains during a storm. I've done it. It's not always funny because it's muddy and it's wet, and then the wood's all wet, and you get up, and I remember most of the trips in the mountains I was in. The early days were in canvas tents, so it just stunk in the morning. It was so miserable. And then later, you got the lighter tents, but they don't hold up the same durable like the story I've told on Main Mountain, Superstition Mountain, in that lightning storm, which to this day is one of the reasons I don't want to camp in a lightning storm. I'm not afraid of lightning, but that storm took a lot of that out of me. It was like, ooh, man. You don't know what it's like till you're just grabbing your stuff and you're dragging it on the ground trying to run for your life down a mountainside because you think you're better doing that than sitting up there and waiting out the storm. Hello, Wayne. Hello, Trevor. Trevor's not here, but that's cool. Hello, everyone. Home from work. And it was sucks without Wi-Fi. Trevor been working on anything new? Yeah, Sunsets is awesome. It's such a good film. There's ideas. We've tossed ideas of doing something fictional, something documentary, and that's usually where it is. He's been so busy on things. We look at what we have and what we think about. We always want to do something unique. I'd like him to do something very unique and different, even if it's a short film, and put it out there for the public. It's just he's been so busy. He had this summer. You got to remember he's like tonight. He's literally sunrise to sunset with what he does, because he's filming all the time. If he's not instructing and teaching, he's out filming. So he'll be in tonight about 10:30, and he's been out. I think he had a conference, CTE conference, one night, and then he's been filming 3 other nights. And then he gets the weekend, but he's working on his doctorate, so he has to work on homework, and he has to do lesson planning and everything for everything else. So everything he's doing is just a lot. So when he gets free time, then he's in Europe. And we still haven't seen the last videos from the last Europe trip. He brings stuff, and it's just like, I have to look over his shoulder when he uploads it just to see kind of what he filmed and the pictures, because I never get to see much of it because it's literally we're on to the next thing. So when you consider the fact that this day in the Superstition Mountain stuff he's always doing, we're always filming videos, we're always moving 8mm and video. We still have a box of videos to go through, which we've been kind of slacking on that. There's always things we're trying to digitize and do. So there's so much stuff that I think there's that let's do something, and he wants to do something with his brother definitely, because Tyler has a degree in film and production, and I think that would be cool for them to do something together. But it's just not been able to happen yet. So we'll see what happens winter break. But we've talked about it and thrown some ideas down, and that's all it ever is just like, well, what do you... He really liked the idea of doing the Jacob Waltz story. Like the Julia Thomas, Reinhardt Petresh, Jim Bark, Jacob Waltz story, as close to as kind of a docudrama, but something there. I don't know. And I don't know. That's sounds like a big deal. Trevor needs to do a follow up. Well, I talked to him about sunsets and doing a sunrise or something else, and Trevor was against it because he didn't think there was a sequel in it. Um, he didn't think because I told him, what about, the rest of the guys, or if we find archival stuff, and he's like, it just doesn't. He didn't think it would work. He thought what we did touched something. How could we do it better? If we had Tom was alive to do it, there was a chance. Bob Corbin involved, okay, you got a chance. But Tom was gone. Bob Corbin wasn't able to do that. So having Rick Gwynn would have been cool because Bob Ward stories and so forth. So we did stuff with Sal, but then there's the difficulty with Sal. You can't understand him. You'd have to subtitle it. And Trevor just kind of looked at it and thought, he didn't want to do this or that. He didn't want to get into the theorizing thing. The cool thing about Sunsets, when you think about it, it's nobody talking about finding the Lost Dutchman. It's nobody talking about where it could be. It's not really about the Lost Dutchman. It's about those guys and their history with the mountains. So it's very different the way it was made, a much different perspective, very unusual. So that was Secretary. Yeah, you should see how much stuff there. Yeah, it's just trying to keep things in order. I'm so glad you make the videos. Thank you. No, thank you guys. As long as people out there watching them, we're good at it. We're good with doing them. I tried to order a long sleeve shirt. I'll have to tell Trevor. No online orders. How do I get one for the rendezvous? I don't know how those work. I will talk to Trevor when he gets in tonight. I will be with him tomorrow too. So, how many tons of gold? Well, that was the thing. When Trevor went to Spain, he called me, and they don't allow you to go into when they go into the treasuries, they make you put your cell phones away, and if they suspect someone's doing anything to film in the treasuries, they get your SD card and take it from you, or they stop you, make you erase it. He said they have people walking and standing everywhere watching you like hawks. So he went through treasuries, and he called me after he got out. He said there was no way I could get film or anything in there. But he said, I know where the gold from the Spanish conquistadors went. He said it's not even like a wild, crazy movie amount of gold. He said it was just overwhelming. He said there was so much stuff as he was walking through, and they have a viewing area. He said, and it's not to mention just the normal rooms you walk through, everything's gilded and gold and stuff. But he said that there was a treasury vault. He said there was so much stuff. He couldn't even tell me what he was seeing. He said it's just literally just pile. It's just so much. It's an incredible amount. And I was like, really? And so I wish he would have got a picture at least or something to give us some concept of it. But he said it was an overwhelming. He said it made what they would do in a movie look ridiculously small compared to what the reality was. Hey, what's up? There you go. Okay, so a lot of it went there. That's what Trevor said. He said there's nothing buried or missing. It's all here. Ever since watching your channel, I've been studying the superstitions of my Maps app with satellite view. Only problem is don't go 3-dimensional and the Google Earth type stuff, because the mountains look nothing like that. From overhead, they look kind of pretty similar, but once you go 3-dimensional, I have a hard time navigating it because it does not look like what the mountains look like. Things disappear, everything changes. It's like it's not very realistic. So, and remember, you're 1,000 feet from the ground. I was lucky I got software that I got to use at work that allowed me to really hone in. I can't imagine what the government has. I could look at stuff very, very close up, but still, you can't change the angle. It's just AI making up what it sees, and it's generally pretty wrong. They were laughing as they insulted me. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. What happened to you? Who was assaulting you? That was a long sleeve shirt. I don't even know what it was. I think you're talking to someone else. They were laughing as they assaulted me. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. Cactus spines removed from my... Ooh, okay, well, there you go. I don't know how you did that. Don't sit on a cactus. Enough to sink numerous galleons. Okay, the E's missing there. Had buyer dogs chase a big boar behind the house last weekend. 4 men in Apache Junction. So, well, I don't know why the 4 men in Apache Junction, what they were doing and how this evolved, and I didn't catch something. I didn't, just kind of fell in there. The cliffs around the 3 Silver Ledge are crazy. Kudos, you're hiking that area. Well, you know, I don't know. I just like going out. You know, the thing to me, the enamoring thing to me, was from the beginning is reading a book, and then I thought it was so cool to stand in that spot. Someone with Google Maps, I would think, would be the same way. I want to stand there. But when you hear the stories and you're like, oh, Bob Ward went up here and he found this somewhere in this area, I just want to go there, and I just want to stand there and breathe and just look around and kind of put myself in, okay, what was it like when somebody was here in the 1910s or 1930s or 1950s? I just love that. To this day, it's still, I think of when I put my feet in it. The Don's Camp is really kind of like that to me, is because I think of, now at this point, there's about 70 years of history in the current camp. And I just think of how many people have been in there. Barry Goldwater used to, in one of those little Ramada huts, used to have the Kachina dolls. It's just so weird, all this stuff that's taken place, the people, the performers, things that have happened in that camp. And you stand in there and you look around, and I look at old photographs, and it's just, to me, just kind of very cool. Are there precious stones in the Superstitions? I've never... Sal says he's found a giant emerald, and I think that's up by 4 Peaks. Rubies, no, I've never seen anything, you know... even though someone once told me there was no obsidian in the Superstitions. I remember he was telling somebody that, and I was like, what? He's someone that people really respected, and he's on Facebook, and he was talking about it. He's kind of he's a knowledgeable guy, but he's not who he wants to be. And I was like, there's obsidian all over. We pick it up in Fish Creek. I sent my... a nephew of mine in Wisconsin a big chunk that we got out of the mountains. That was just so, because he wanted to try to make arrowheads and stuff, and yeah, it's just, what are you talking about? You know, there's obsidian. I know where there's a couple nice sized obsidian deposits in some places. You know, it was volcanic activity. There was calderas. You know, it's funny. So I don't know. There could be anything. Who knows? There could be a diamond mine. Who knows? I just have never seen anything like that. That's never been, it's because I've never heard of anybody really doing that. I don't know. The ruby Sal saw was on a table in a cave. Supposedly. Allegedly. Let's use allegedly from now on. I got a hurt out along Coronado Trail. Okay. Coronado Trail or Coronado Mesa? I remember my dad voting for Goldwater at 64. Yes, I'm that old. Sure, my dad did too. I don't think, I think Barry retired before I could even vote for him as senator. Pretty sure. I don't know when Goldwater retired. But he was a good guy. Don, a member of the Dons of Arizona, and definitely in the Superstition, spent time out there. The rubies and emeralds occur with the volcano. Yeah, I would think there could be. I just never heard of anything like that. And it could be, you know. Well, we're having a geologist who's very, very knowledgeable in that sort of thing. One of the first things he told us was how the mineral studies of the Superstitions were never completed and probably never will be. So a lot of what people base it on, the government studies, they were never even really like 50% done. Most of it was just never finished. So it is what it is. But anyways, I've never heard of that other than Sal's stories. Gold, silver, copper. Silica. I think Chuck Crawford claimed there was platinum, not plutonium, platinum. You can cross-reference geological mineral occurrences. Sometimes it works. Yeah, okay. And America's Untold Stories. But I had to say hi. Okay. Can't miss the live stream. It's too fast. When Dad passes, I will sink a shaft in Queen Valley. There you go. Okay. Four Peaks was nice last week. The water moved some dirt. Yeah, it should be nice because it will have moved a lot of dirt in a lot of areas. And 87, so I did vote for Goldwater. Okay, I probably voted for his last Senate run. So that would have been it, because he would have, I think, Senate seat 6 years, and I think he retired at the end of that, so it probably would have been, 81, 82 to 87 or something. So it would have been the last one, but yeah, I actually heard him talk. I got a tape somewhere of him talking. It's kind of funny because it's not a very long talk. The introduction for him is absolutely insanely long. So, yeah, so it's very cool. Wow, time flew by. I don't know about everybody else. I looked at the clock and was like, damn. To note, we might throw something up. I don't know what'll happen. We may not be doing live for next Friday because it is Halloween night. You will, if you pay attention or you look at Facebook, or even maybe we'll throw something up on YouTube so people will understand, but I'm a full-blown nut for Halloween. It's all kinds of stuff going on, so I really, really, really just push my Halloween over the top because I love Halloween. I think it's not easily my favorite holiday. It always has been as a kid. I love the fact that it's there, and this year we're a little different, but usually I throw it all up on the day of. The kids go to school, I throw it up, they come home, they go in the house, they get ready for Halloween, they come out. My house is just mind-blowing of lights and smoke and everything, in graveyards. And then once they're done and the night finishes, we pick it all up and get it out of there, so the next morning they get up to go to the bus and it's gone. My house is normal again. But I'm getting old. I can't do the roadie work I used to do. So, but no, we have a very cool Halloween, so that will be it. We'll probably put something, or I'll on YouTube do a live brief to show everybody the yard and stuff, because it's very, very cool. How much charge would there be from early? How much change from the early 1900s? I don't know. It's changed a lot in the mountains for me since I was a kid. I look at it and I can see it, and it looks the same, but it looks really different. And that was because there was once cattle in there. There's no cattle in there. It's been droughts. So it's kind of very, very different to me. I look at the mountains and there's a lot more cat claw than there was once. It's just very different in places. In general, it seems the same, and then very specifically walking through the mountains and stuff, it's very different. Have a great weekend. It sucks, but have a great Halloween. Yeah, no, it's not about being scary. It's about being the boogeyman, and the boogeyman can't disappoint. So, and yeah, I don't boogie like Casey and the Sunshine Band though. I'm trying to make sure I caught everybody. Thank you. Enjoy your weekend. This channel's awesome, dude. There you go. Been exploring around First Water Springs and loving it. Some of your favorite areas. I love Bluff Springs Mountain up on top of there. I always liked being down in the lower LaBarge box. There's just some areas that I don't know if it was when I was a kid. I love Needle Canyon. I like Blacktop Mesa and Palomino, that area. The main mountain on the south end. It's just, I don't know if there's any one place. It's just there's a lot of places, and I think it's just the places that's when I was a kid I went and saw so much, and because of that, it ties in with me as when I go back and, I look at it. I think it's, it's just so much to take in. And I really love Haunted Canyon, too, in that area coming in from the south. Thank you for your time. Enjoy your weekend. I will. like I said, Halloween's starting up, so I'll be having fun with that stuff. So, and the spooky stuff will be coming. I may do one more spooky one. Is the November 1st still happening? What is in the November 1st? November 1st is still happening if I think I know what you're talking about, though it's not publicized. So, they're supposed to be November 1st, yes. So, but I'm going to get out of here. Everybody have a great Halloween. November 1st is still happening. But yeah, I just everybody have a good time. Thank you. Fast. Have a good weekend. Kick-ass Halloween. I will. I always do, and I enjoy it. Like I said, we will get something up on YouTube this year because people don't catch us. I think Facebook is almost completely separated from us now where we started. So, no biggie. Corbin is just a guy. But anyhow, we will catch you guys the next week probably, and then the Friday of the Rendezvous we will try to kind of figure out what we're going to do moving forward from that. I don't know if we can really, I mean, the streaming would be choppy from that, so see, now that's, dude, that's where you fuck, I will say this, that's where you fuck up. That's just fucking wrong. You actually just remove yourself from the whole thing. Man, why should I bother with it? There's not kidding and it's not LOL. You're just, you know what? To be honest, while we had a really good time here and everybody enjoyed it, if you're still there, you were just being a fucking dick. And you wouldn't fucking run into me on the trail after that. That was just fucking wrong. And I'm sorry, everybody, I apologize. But when someone's that much of a dick to a good friend who's gone, fuck you, dude. So, but hey, everybody else have a good, happy Halloween next Friday, all right? And kind of hate that it just did that downer note, but it also shows you in all of us, as we say a drink and toast to, there's a little Bob Ward in all of us. Always remember that motherfucker. Little Bob Ward in all of us. Sorry, children, who cover your ears when you hear that. But there is. And there's plenty of holes still open out there we can fill in with you. Internet makes people brave. Thank you so much. Everybody have a great weekend. We will catch you next time around. And have a great time, because I'm not going to do any more tomfoolery and stuff. Because, yeah, it's just, sometimes people got to cross the line. Have a great weekend, everyone. Have a wonderful Halloween. And we will catch you guys all later. Adios.